Could we actually get a ukulele for the outro?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So we all run startup programs for our respective corporations. And I'm going to do double duty as both moderator and kind of panelist. So everyone here is going to kind of kick off by explaining their program. And for me, Highway 1 is part of PCH. PCH is a large supply chain management company. And we take in startups, hardware startups specifically, for 4 months and help them de-risk their manufacturing and scaling programs.
The Constant Contact Interloft is a 4-month program for startups that are looking to scale. So unlike 500 Startups or Y Combinator, we're looking for startups who have a product in market and we can help them grow their user base.
So as the Chief Security Architect for Dell, I work with the Dell Innovation Fund, and their job is to look at interesting startups that we want to do business with, incorporate, invest in, and I'm one of the guys that looks at the technology and decides the final decisions about what we want to do or not do.
I'm part of a team in America that's focused on supporting startups, entrepreneurs, small businesses throughout the U.S. And we empower startups through a series of efforts called our Innovator Initiatives. So we connect companies internally to departments at American. We give travel grants. We sponsor about 40 to 50 accelerators throughout the U.S., including organizations like Up Global and publications, of course, like Tech Cocktail.
So I'm with Silicon Valley Bank, and I lead our early stage banking team in our initiative to really find, at the earliest stages, the most innovative companies in the market. Silicon Valley Bank today is fortunate to be the largest commercial tech bank in the market. We bank the vast majority of venture-funded and pre-seeded startups out there, and the VCs as well. And as we bring these companies in and we vet them and believe that they're fundable, scalable, and defensible, we then, as clients, try to leverage our network, connect them to corporates, connect them to angels and investors, give them private events that enable them to build their brand and share their message and learn how to better execute and educate on different models and success stories and expert insights that are out there. So it's a pretty unparalleled endeavor in the market, and we're really proud to lead that charge. It's all about finding the best companies early and creating a deep and immersive relationship that is absolutely relevant.
So I lead PayPal's Startup Blueprint initiative in North America. It's a global program. We support high-growth startups move to the next level of profitability, and the way we do that is by waiving off transaction fees. So we waive off transaction fees for up to 1.5 million if you use PayPal and 100,000 with Braintree, and provide the best world-class technical as well as business support to startups in our program. So if you're interested, go check out blueprint.paypal.com.
So Elliot, why is Dell doing this program?
That's a great question. When we look at doing engineering projects, we try to figure out the roadmap for Dell. And we run the gambit of hardware, software, services, cloud, all over the place. We cannot possibly do it all organically. And we also need to be strategic about what we want to do organically versus build, buy, partner in our space. So to us, this is strategically how we get in on the ground floor what we consider to be the most innovative ideas and smartest teams to help us grow in an inorganic and partnership fashion.
Sneha?
So PayPal started as a startup not too long back, about 10 years back, and we sort of wanted to give back to the startup community. We brainstormed a couple of ideas on what we should do and realized that we need startups to use PayPal platform. And with our acquisition of Braintree, we wanted more startups to monetize. And what was a better way to help them monetize was to give them support. And so if you're an early stage startup, we decided, you have to pay 3% approximately as transaction fees if you're monetizing using your web or your mobile app. And we decided to waive that off for startup. And instead of going through generic customer support, you go through to our team. We have the best engineers as well as product people on our team who you could talk to for mentorship, for product roadmap advice, and even for who should I raise investments from, like could you connect me to VC partners? So that's how the genesis of the program began. It's a pretty early stage program, and we're out to look out for the next big thing as part of our program.
So how can corporations structure these programs so that it helps startups and doesn't hurt them? Carrie?
So I think first of all, you have to have really passionate, dedicated intentions. You know, in our industry, talk is cheap and action is everything. So it's easy for companies to say they're going to do X, Y, and Z, but the proof is in the pudding. So I encourage you, as you think about the right programs out there for you, make sure that these are programs that are dedicated to driving engagement, leveraging that access that can provide you, with the ability to connect to the right partners and really get down and proactively be of value to you, whether it's in helping you identify the immediate services that are going to be of benefit to, or connecting you to the right investors, or helping you better understand which corporate partners you need to be leveraging and connecting to in the ecosystem. I think these are the programs that are most relevant. And then, look at the strength of the programs, look at the success stories that are coming out of them, understand the history and the companies that have been part of those programs to better understand whether that's a right fit for you.
Now, your program's been around the longest of all of ours. How have you made it sustainable, and who are some of your wins?
Yeah, so we have been doing this well over 6 years. Silicon Valley Bank for years was always known as the bank for venture-funded companies and for the venture community and the institutional funds and the corporate groups. But with the rise of the angel community, we really realized that there was a change in the funding model. And so there was an opportunity to engage and to drive these really deep and immersive relationships with companies at the earliest stages. And guess what? At the earliest stages is when you need it most. So you find companies like Silicon Valley Bank that are willing to put time, money, and resources, and quite honestly, expertise to use at the earliest stages. The opportunity is to be relevant, to be impactful, and to be honestly part of the success story going forward. So for us, my team alone brings in over 1,000 new accounts for the bank every year. And a measure for success for us is seeing those companies get funding, seeing them move to the growth team and the corporate late-stage finance team, seeing them do and leverage more services like debt that are available through the different teams in our bank. But success story-wise, companies like Airbnb and Box were originated out of my team. So this is the engagement that we want. And quite honestly, this is the kind of conversation that corporations like SVB and all the others that are represented here are trying to have. It's a personalized conversation, a relevant conversation. What worked before does not work now. And corporations across America, everyone included on this stage, are out to, I think, try to drive meaningful engagement with each of you.
Paul, Todd, neither of your programs take equity.
Correct.
So how do you make it work for your companies?
So at American, we're a small team, but we leverage a lot of our partners through our accelerators, publications like Tech Cocktail, and other partners to reach the most promising, innovative, up-and-coming startups. And we don't take an equity stake in the company. We provide support, again, either through travel grants, meaningful connections to departments at American. We also feature an article every month in our American Way magazine. So we vet out a very promising, up-and-coming, innovative company. We feature them with a half-page article. It goes on every seat, every plane for 30 days. It's incredible exposure. It's very meaningful visibility and really pushes the dial forward on that company. And again, travel grants. We're trying to take away and help a company. We recognize travel's expensive, so we're trying to make and facilitate that face-to-face connection, whether it's to close a sale, meet with a new VC, or meet with a new vendor. We're trying to make that happen.
Yeah, so with us, we don't take equity. We actually offer a bit of cash. The final amount for this past class was $10,000 per startup. And that's to go to their marketing. Again, we're trying to help them scale. So once you've got your product market fit, can you pour the gas on the fire? So the idea behind that is in terms of making it work for us, it's really about getting ourselves as Constant Contact back in touch with the tech community, and also planting the flag in the sand that we stand for small business innovation, because that's our core customer is our small businesses. And so if we can help other startups that are trying to reach that, for example, OmniLink is a company that initially had 2 beta users. They had 2 pilot users when they came to our program. And they were said, well, we want to do something with liquor stores and this because we have this interesting potential data POS play. And so we said, well, here's a list of 50 of our local customers that are liquor stores that sell wine and spirits or something like that. And so they went out and talked to them. That's how we help them.
So how far do you open the kimono? The best startups are just, they're so greedy. And as soon as they get an email from someone else in PCH, they're mailing them all the time. And I mean greedy in a complimentary way. So how far do you open the kimono when letting startups into your organization?
Oh, that's a great question. It's, it's a double-edged sword about letting them reveal a lot of stuff to a company like a Dell or a Microsoft or a Cisco. One of the things that we want to make sure is that if we're talking to a startup, one, that they are doing something really innovative and really interesting that is looking not just past this year or the next year about a problem they're solving that's prevalent today, but how are they thinking about 3 to 5 years out? How are they going to disrupt the current markets to change the market in such a way that, wow, this is something nobody's thinking about, and how can we work with a larger company to distribute that and operate that? Now, at the same time, that double-edged sword for a Dell would be, we don't want to influence the startup so much that we change that path. We want to make sure that they are able to have a great vision and enable that vision, and if we influence them too much, they say, we'll do anything you like, Dell, as long as we get to be on your laptops and servers and you distribute us and everything. And that may not be in their best interest. So what we do is we open up enough information for them to understand how they fit into why we're talking to them, where we're going, and why we see them as relevant. At the same time, I as a chief architect for the company, make sure that my middle management and my engineers don't influence the startup so much that they lose the path that they're on. And it's an art to making sure that you're making sure the startup's successful while not compromising them, because they're so interested in leveraging the channel that is the bigger company. We have to make sure that we don't influence them too far. And also, it's a matter of IP. If we reveal too much of what we're going to be doing, that can change their path as well and take them off the path they're on. We wanted them to innovate in the space to win.
Yeah, we're pretty open. We let them come into our space. We have a 30,000 square foot space for them. They have free reign of that. They can't access certain parts of the organization without really permission, but a lot of it is we'll set up meetings. For example, one of them was having trouble with their database, and we said, well, let's just get you upstairs and go talk to the database architect, and he can show you what they do.
Yeah.
And within a 30-minute conversation, that startup had their problem solved.
We do a lot of that too. It's like we look at a certain part of their aspects of what they're doing, and we say, you know what? Let me have you talk to one of our architects in this division who's been doing this for 15 years.
Exactly.
And they get an idea, wait a minute, if we just take a minor change, we just improved our product plans that much. If we can do that for them, it's well worth the time for that's us and them.
And there's a benefit to us as well, because we'll get that, well, hey, how come you couldn't do it this way? Or the startup just comes in and they'll ask questions that the guy who's been doing it for 15 years doesn't quite see initially. And
Sure.
we've actually experienced that a couple times. It's been kind of fun.
I think
Absolutely.
going back to your original point, though, about how far do you open the kimono, I mean, within SVB and the services that we offer to the early stage companies that we select to work with us, there's a certain level of access that all of our clients have, whether it's, banking, early stage banking packages that make it as fee-free and as seamless as possible to work with us, whether it's the private invets that we have, or some of it's even more curated and kind of customized. And for that, not everyone can participate. I think part of what has to happen with everyone on this stage and with the interactions that you have on a corporate level is for everyone to be very honest about what you can and can't do. There are companies out there that want to be introduced to corporates or introduced to institutionals or certain angels. Quite honestly, it's part of our responsibility at a corporate level to make sure that we have honest conversations, set expectations, and say, look, here's how we can help you, and how we help each company differs dependent upon who we're meeting with, and if they're actually ready to be introduced to that corporate. Because part of what we have to do is not only help that startup client, but make sure that we maintain that solid relationship with the corporate or with the institutional VC so that they know that we will always be giving them quality introductions and quality deal flow. So it's a fine line. right? There is no black and white approach to any of it. There are certain things that everyone has access to, and the rest of it is just about leveraging expertise so that, right, you're having the right conversations at the right time.
I also find that, and Carrie brings up a great point, that a lot of times when I have the initial conversation with a startup, they might not be ready yet for an introduction or one of our innovator initiatives. That's not to say that we might not circle back in 6 to 12 months. So I always tell a startup, get in front of me, get some time. I want to learn about your company. And if you're not ready now, keep in touch. And that's important because things change. A company pivots, you get financing, you move to the next stage, and then there might be a point where we can really help you out. So with all of us and any corporation, I would always say, find out who you need to be connected with, get in front of them. It's never too early to do that, and stay in touch. And then a lot of times, I would say most of the time, the companies that we help are companies that I had been in touch with 6 months earlier, and now that I'm in a position, or they're in a position, that I can help go forward with one of our initiatives.
Just to give an example, sorry. In PayPal Startup Blueprint program, some of the startups, they're doing Bitcoin stuff. Some startups are doing wearables. So what we do is we assign an account manager for every startup, and they have open-ended conversations with them, trying and understanding what they really require from PayPal. And if it makes sense for PayPal's internal team to talk to them, we make that introduction. So it's very specific to what the startup is looking at. And going back to Carrie's point, right, we give them access to all the startups in our program. We give them access to certain things like transaction fees, curated events, public as well as personal events. So, and there are some things that you need to have a proper conversation and very open-ended and honest conversation with what you're looking to do in terms of partnering with big corporates. Yeah.
So how are your companies benefiting from working with startups beyond just bringing them on as customers?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great question. When you think about how we're benefiting from it, we are looking 3 to 5 years out on technology plans. And when you're stuck in your silo and you're thinking about what do we have to do in the next 6 months to compete in the laptop space, in the software space, the cloud space, so on and so forth, sometimes you don't have the flexibility to see the vision of this is going to participate in the market, is going to change everything. And one of the things that we like to do with startups is when we see somebody has a really innovative space, something that is just something we weren't expecting to happen, it's the quid pro quo here is that, the folks at companies like Dell and Microsoft and Cisco where I've worked, we've seen a million ways to do it wrong. And if we can help that startup avoid some of those obvious trip-ups so that they can take advantage of that kind of experience while we take advantage of that kind of innovation, that copacetic conversation is worth more than you could possibly know. We really benefit from working with people that are being more flexible, can innovate that way when we are stuck in the tracks of having to drive the revenue we have to drive. So it's absolutely cross-beneficial to us.
Yeah, same here. Some of the startup teams, they still have to serve small businesses, which is our market. And sometimes there's just natural overlays of, oh, hey, you guys do this. That's actually a great synergy here. We should partner on this. So we've actually been in discussions with some of them. We actually might be a customer of one of them because of the data they produce. Such as one example, but for sure.
Is PayPal going back to its roots?
Well, for us, it's as simple as brand loyalty, right? When startups use PayPal or Braintree, we sort of hope that they stick with us when they grow up to be the next big Uber or Airbnb type of a company. So it's about adopting our platform. It's also about giving us feedback, right, in terms of what works the best, what APIs work. You could add these features. It's very helpful for us, et cetera, as well.
And then I would say for our end, it's core to our model, right? So our early stage banking activity is really an investment, like I said, in our own future. And as these companies get funding, then they take on additional services with us, whether it's leveraging debt or an opportunity for us to connect them to corporate partners or late-stage institutional VCs who consistently look to my team, our growth team, for deal flow, right? So we're not only benefiting our direct banking model, but we're also really becoming relevant and helpful to our VC and institutional and investor clients as well. So it's a win-win if we do our jobs well and right, but it's all about being selective and really trying to find the best companies out there.
So one of the things that we've seen at PCH is it helps keep our engineers who are working with our larger customers, like say Apple, more engaged and learning about new technologies. And it's interesting how much, after doing the same thing for years and years, to suddenly experience a whole kind of the chaos of startups, how much that can energize them. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the pitfalls that might befall startups from partnering with a relative behemoth?
Go ahead.
Don't get caught in the trap of trying to please the behemoth. They have their plans, they have their revenue plans, their marketing plans. They are there to make sure that their cash cows are moving forward. And there are plenty of behemoths that will consume your startup and take it in the wrong direction because they're not concerned about you succeeding. They're concerned about their ownership of the IP, their ownership of the space, and making sure they can influence. I always make a very pointed effort to make sure no matter what we're doing, we are not going to compromise that startup from succeeding. We're only going to help them. Because if we're not, then Dell's doing the wrong thing. And I've seen so many companies, like for instance, when a startup's working and they get in a discussion going with an executive of a major Wall Street bank, and that Wall Street bank only sees what they need, and the startup gets so engrossed is we can get in with that bank, we can, have this kind of a channel. The same thing can happen with a Dell, with a Microsoft. Don't lose focus about what you got into the business for. If it's a viable idea, people are investing in you, if people are interested, stick with it.
Yeah,
Don't let something like a behemoth ruin your path.
There's an element of focus, and I think there's an example that we have of just one of the startup teams getting a little bit of mentoritis. They just had a lot of different advice from a lot of different people within our organization and the mentors that we brought in for them. And I think that slowed them down rather than speeded them up. So that was something that we have to be mindful of about how we make sure we put those in So for startups, the advice is, put a filter on.
Yeah, I saw one of the startups from the second Highway 1 class, an offhand comment from a mentor spun one of the co-founders into trying to get the company to pivot. And it ended up hurting them and wasting a lot of time. And it was just a mentor who just heard about them and was like, oh, how about this idea? And suddenly, people, it was bad.
Yeah, it can be really bad.
So, Paul, how do companies get into American? Or your program at American?
So, with a small team, I'm Boston-based. I've got a colleague in San Francisco, and we report into a team at headquarters in Dallas. And so we, through our sponsorships of a number of accelerators, gives us a great window to vet out some of the most promising up-and-coming startups. And then really, as a team, we reach out, we identify these companies, and then it's usually a call. And then we determine if it's a fit for one of our innovator initiatives, and then we move forward from there. And then it's determined whether it's a travel grant, it's an introduction, or it's an external introduction, or another way we can help. And so usually we're looking for companies that have a live product in the marketplace. So initially, some of the very early stage, again, it's great to make that connection, and it might circle back with us down 6, 12 months down the line, or we actually move forward and we go ahead with one of these initiatives.
Carrie?
Yeah, so we are very proactive out in the market. So we are finding and coming across these innovative companies from a variety of resources, whether it's conferences that we attend, tons of referrals that we get from trusted service providers and industry experts. The VC community, of course, sends us a lot of deal flow, as do angels. But it really is about, when we decide to work with a company, it really is answering the question, are they fundable, scalable, and defensible? Do we think that they have something disruptive in the market? Do we think that they, have an opportunity to create the partnerships that they're after and scale their client base and be, that disruptor in the market? And most importantly, it's about looking to the founding team. Just as an angel or a VC would, the biggest risk to any early stage engagement, whether you're looking at it from a banking perspective or, a corporate perspective or, even a seed and angel perspective, is really the founder and the ability of that founder or founding team to execute. So if you can mitigate that risk as much as possible, these are the things that we look at, because ultimately it's that long tail opportunity that is making the most sense for SVB.
So, Elliot, why do you think Dell needs startups to come up with new products?
That's a great question. We can't possibly organically grow everything. Now, there are some things that we're going to make organic investment in and do the engineering because we have the capability of it, we have the base code for it, we have the base hardware for it, the base services, whatever it may be, but we can't possibly do it organically. And every time I look at a new space, whether it's pure security, whether it's hardware design, whether it's Internet of Things or cloud management or whatever we're looking at, I always put together a build, buy, partner, OEM, ignore matrix. That's based on what Dell needs to do to succeed or not in a space and decide whether we want to go into that space as a core function for Dell. That, unless we say we're going to go organic and build every one of those other slots of buy, partner, OEM, or ignore, that is either we're going to have to work with somebody who already has the tech, which means we're already working into a space that's already done, or we're going to have to work with a startup and really, mentor that startup and help them grow it and help them build it. And we offer the ability to give them channel, distribution, brand, sometimes investment. We will do investment sometimes. But we go across the board of, if we're not going to build it ourselves, we have to work with startups.
All right, we've got just 1 minute left, so we'll do our closing question. No whammies. What do startups need most? Let's just start at the end.
Sure. So the way we view what startups need most from us is mentorship, product support, technical support, and waived fees. So that's money.
And I would say from the Silicon Valley Bank side, it's access to industry experts that can help guide you in a way that will help drive the success of your business, connect you in thoughtful ways to the broader innovation ecosystem, help you, scale as you go abroad, right? Go international and leverage the industry insights that providers like our bank can give you access to help you educate and execute out in the market. Because the reality is you have one chance to make a first impression, and you need to do that well, and you need to do that at the right time, and you need to do that with the right partners. So just as you would an angel or a VC, be thoughtful about who you're engaging with, pick the right approach and pick the good partners, because those that are the good ones will really be additive to your success story.
So basically all of the above. I mean, we sponsor 30, 40 accelerators. It's critical at a very early stage that you receive guidance, mentoring, and then financing. And so we think that's a critical jumping off point. And then obviously we think travel's important, so that's why we're here to support you on that. But also connections. And so we as a company feel it's important not only through our connections internally, externally.
We're over time.
All right, I'm going to end it with that.
In a nutshell, when you're looking at something like a big tech company, think about route to market. You're going to either have to go the hard road of going account to customer, or imagine the idea of working with a partner that can say, I can put you on 5 million laptops in the next 12 months that go to every customer. An example like that,
Excellent.
if that is of interest, go with it.
I'd say resources, right? Enterprises have resources, startups typically don't.
Yeah.
How can we then blend the two? And that's really how we look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say money, and that's true, but you can get money from anywhere if you're good. So when you're choosing one of these other partners, look at what their expertise is, figure out what your hardest challenge is, and go to them for that. So in the case for us, it's to help you get manufacturing, which for hardware startups is your biggest hidden challenge.
That's it.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.